Hello and welcome to the Careers in Social Services edition of SHEP's Professional Insights series. I'm here with three accomplished alumni who will briefly introduce themselves, and then we will launch into a conversation about careers in social services. I'm Danielle Breidung, SHEP's Alumni Engagement Specialist and a SHEP alumna from the class of 2011. So, SHEP alums, thank you for being here. I'm so glad that we get to have this conversation. And of course, I wish we could do it in person, but we are on Zoom from our respective locations. Um, we'll jump right into it. And I was wondering if each of you could tell us your name, your hometown, where you went to school for your undergrad, and if you have any postgraduate degrees or certificates, I'd love to hear about those too. Let's start with you, Amy.
Great. Hi, I'm Amy. I use she, her pronouns. I'm from Westchester, New York, and I went to Elon University in North Carolina for undergraduate, where I studied human services. And I did SHEP in 2016. And I am currently studying for my Master's of Social Work at University of Michigan in Ann Arbor.
Excellent. Thanks, Amy. Angela, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I'm Angela. I use she, her pronouns. I'm from Cincinnati, went to Athens, Ohio at OU for undergrad, moved to Columbus, and have been practicing social work here for the last couple years. And I'm planning to start my master's program part-time while working full-time. So I'm excited, but also nervous for how that's going to go. But I really love learning, so I think it will be fine. I did the SHEP internship in Atlanta in 2017 and loved it.
Thanks, Angela. That leaves you, Tracy.
Hi, I'm Tracy Schmidt. I am originally from a very small town in Wyoming County, New York, where there's literally more cows than people. I then went to school at Niagara University in Niagara Falls, New York. And I got my BSW, so my Bachelor's of Social Work there. I went on to get my master's at the University of Buffalo, and I'm also a licensed social worker in New York. And I completed my SHEP internship in 2013.
Wow, so we have sort of people along the spectrum of BSWs, MSWs, Bachelors of Social Work, Masters of Social Work, for those who haven't heard those acronyms yet, but I'm sure throughout the evening you will hear them a bunch, so we'll get used to it. Everyone sort of talked about their SHEP internship in terms of timing, and I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about that. So where did you do your internship? Like what partner agency, what city, if you didn't say that already, and what your biggest takeaway was. And we'll just go in reverse order. So Tracy, we'll start with you.
Sure. So I did my SHEP internship in Clagato, Arizona at St. Anne's Mission on the Navajo Reservation. And the biggest takeaway that I took from that experience, the single biggest, I think, was really just cultural humility. I came from a very homogenous Caucasian town in conservative New York, and then lived on a Navajo reservation where I was not in the minority population. And I think learning about another culture and learning about a culture in a respectful way was very impactful for me. And also I would say learning to like working with children, because I never wanted to work with children. I did a lot of work with children during that internship, and I shockingly enjoyed it. So I cheated. I had two biggest takeaways.
No, that's really great. And it's interesting how the SHEP internship pushed you in a direction that maybe wouldn't have been your first choice if you had known, but it ended up being really positive.
Oh, yeah.
So I was in Atlanta at Remerge, which focuses on like building relationships between people. Like there were specific communities too, like there was a homelessness like focus in one area, and like that was where I was mostly at. And there was so much that I learned from it. But I guess if I could take away one thing is that like social services work is relational and relationships matter. and it should not be one directional, like, I give to you, I come save you, I know what you need. Like, that's not right, and it's actually not showing them like the dignity and worth that people deserve if you treat someone like that. So yeah, I think that that's the biggest thing I took away.
I love
That
that.
was
And I'm
so well
excited.
said.
Oh, go ahead, Amy. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
sorry.
No, you're good.
So I definitely echo everything Angela just said. That was so eloquent. I did my internship at St. Joseph's Carpenter Society in Camden, New Jersey. And they are a nonprofit that focuses on affordable housing and community development. And I had very similar takeaways in that I realized the importance of building relationships and also like collaborating with other nonprofits and really recognizing both the assets of a community and the needs of a community and really seeing like all of the amazing things that community members are doing and all of the strengths they bring to the table. And also, like Angela said, like not coming in as like that like white savior of like, I know what's best for you, but really listening to the community and getting to know the community and building those relationships. Yeah.
That's excellent. And Amy, I do want to start with you for this next one because I know you had an interesting experience post undergrad that's really relevant to this. So the prompt now is, what did you do after undergrad? Like, what, you got your degree, and then what were your next steps? What shaped those steps? And if you want, like, if you could go back, what might you change? That's up to you if you want to share that. But Amy, let's start with you and hear what you did after graduation.
Great. So after graduation, I did Princeton in Latin America. So I was placed at Hispaniola in the Dominican Republic, where I worked for 7 months until COVID. It was supposed to be a year-long program, but unfortunately it got cut short. But I was working with Hispaniola, which is a nonprofit that focuses on educational equity in Bate Libertad. So they do a lot of children's literacy, they do university scholarships, and a lot of just general community work. So I absolutely loved that experience and learned so much from it, again, about building community, getting to know community members, and recognizing the assets within communities. I also learned a lot about how like the key is really coming in to partner with the community and really not coming in like you know best, but instead that the community knows best and you're there to support them as they grow and work to make positive change within their community. Um, I don't think I would change anything about my journey except to obviously make COVID not a thing and be able to stay the full year. But I had an absolutely incredible experience. The people were the most amazing people I've ever met. And I'm really grateful I got to have that experience.
That's excellent. And so after you did a partial Princeton in Latin America fellowship, you came back to the US, is that right? And then what did you do in the summer, fall?
I did. So I came back, had a little bit of downtime trying to figure out my next plans, and then I got accepted to University of Michigan. So I started grad school in August, and that's what I've been doing since.
Amazing. Sometimes that's how it works out, right? That's excellent. And we have a guest joining us. Hi, Jim. Welcome.
Hello, I'm sorry I'm late. I had a little family thing I had to take care of, so.
That's all right. Welcome to the party.
Thank you.
So I'm here with
the party atmosphere. I can feel it.
Yes, social workers are very charged up this evening. So I'm here with
I love the party.
Angela and Amy and Tracy, and we were just kind of diving into that post-undergrad. What did we do? Why did we do it? What would we change if we could, or nothing if we didn't? If we wouldn't change anything. So,
yeah. Well, I'll see if I can try to remember my post-grad days, which are now, but
yeah, right.
also a long time ago.
Amy was just telling us about her experience in the Dominican Republic and in Haiti. Were you living on which side of the border, Amy?
I was on the Dominican side of the border, but the community comprised mostly of Haitians and Dominicans of Haitian descent, with a few Dominicans as well. But basically, batees are sugar plantations, or used to be sugar plantations. So a lot of Haitian migrants would come to work on the sugar plantations. So then they would form bate communities. So I was living or working in the bate community of Bate Libertad, which they no longer do sugar. They now do guandoles. So they harvest guandoles, which are these peas. So they spend a lot of the day harvesting the peas, shelling the peas, and there's also some like rice factories nearby. So that's where a lot of the people in the community worked, the ones that were employed.
Wow. Thank you so much. And I'm curious to hear later what you're focusing kind of your social work studies on now that you're on that side of the progression. That's really cool. Angela, what did you do after graduation?
So after graduation, I was like, I need money somehow. I need to get a job. So I ended up getting a job in Columbus at Youth Advocate Services, working in the community, doing community mental health services for kids. And I loved it, like really loved it. Getting to see kids every day. Like I'm a really hyper person and love like being goofy and creative. So kids is just like a population I have like a really warm spot or just really like them. So I did that for a couple of years. And then just at the beginning of the pandemic, I started a new job, which is crazy. I didn't realize because I accepted the position at the end of January of 2020. And then I started on March 16th at Nationwide Children's Hospital as a Help Me Grow home visitor. So now I work with babies and I love that, moms and babies. And I help like build a strong attachment between the parent and the child. Like I am not the expert. Like, I don't even have kids, you know? So like, how can I, and it's like, that's perfect because we're not coming from a place where like we know everything and we're coming to tell you. Kind of like the same takeaway that I took from my SHEP internship. Like it's relational, like just that positive relationship helps create like a safe space for people to make changes. And I thought with the pandemic and with like 5 years is the like cutoff for a lot of social workers. It might be for everybody to get their the ASAP program to be eligible for that. If you get like B's or above in all of your social work classes, you can do the ASAP program where you graduate in half the time that it would normally take. So I decided, oh my God, I graduated in 2018. So that means like 2023 is when I need to do it. And I'm like, it's already coming down the line. So yeah, I'm planning to start that in June while working.
And so for those who aren't as familiar with the progression of Bachelor of Social Work to Master of Social Work, Angela is talking about advanced standing social work programs. Is that right, Angela? Correct me if I'm wrong. Basically, where instead of doing a 2-year Master of Social Work program full-time, you do a 1-year program or a part-time program that's extended over a longer period of time. But it's a great way for people to get into the field faster if they know that they definitely want to practice social work after graduation. So that's also a different path from what Amy did and from what Tracy did. So that's cool that we kind of have all those perspectives represented. Angela, are you glad that you took time off in between your bachelor's and your master's in social work to work in the field?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. I'm really glad I did that because I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. Like, am I sure that I know that I like doing social services, but I was like, what if I got like a dance therapy master's to go with my social work, or you know, some other masters to complement the social work. But after being in the field for about 2.5 years, I realized I love social work and this is what's for me. And if down the line I want to get another master's in something else, I could. But for now, like I just know social work is what I want. And I also wanted to get a master's too. You can get a lot of jobs with just the LSW, but like there's a lot of things that you can't do. Like with my clients at my old job, I wanted to be able to do things like EMDR or like other types or parent-child interaction therapy. I would love to be able to do that with my families now. I guess I can't really do therapy, but regardless, some of those skills I'd like to be able to have, I can't because I don't have the MSW. So that kind of led me to be like, regardless, I want it because I want to be able to do more for my families.
Understood. Well, that clarity is really good. And I think you'll be able to offer other services, which will be wonderful because you're already doing the work. So that's great. All right, Tracy, you're our veteran in this group.
So I got my BSW fast tracked right into my MSW, the advanced standing right away, took my licensure test right away, and then left the field. I did not go to
Thank you
social
so much.
Yeah. And I realized, looking back on it, I did not have the confidence I was like, how am I going to take, I took and I take this work so seriously that I didn't have the confidence at the time. And I think a lot of people enter this field because of personal experiences. And I think I needed to do a lot of healing before I could help other people heal. So I did some HR stuff. I did some renewable energy stuff, which was pretty cool. And then I realized, oh yeah, I really love helping people. I did this for a reason. I need to get back in the field. So I started volunteering at Erie County Crisis Services on their crisis hotline. So I did a lot of suicide prevention, and that helped me get into the door at a residential substance use rehabilitation center. And I never wanted to do clinical work. When I was in my master's, I was always more meso macro focused because I was terrified of clinical work. And then my first job was clinical and I fell in love. And then less than 2 years into that job, I was recruited for a program director position. So I was really faced with, do I want to continue down the clinical work, kind of what Angela touched on? Do I want to pursue my LCSW, learn EMDR, or do I want to kind of have a broader scope and pursue more community work and more meso level work? And the beauty of social work is I get to do both. So I have a small private practice with my LMSW, and then my full-time position is that program director at a nonprofit. And I loved that clinical position at the residential facility so much that I also work there part-time. So very busy, but it's because I love the work so much. And the cool thing about social work is it's so broad that you can do so many things with your degree. And right now I get to do a ton of stuff with my degree, and it's really invigorating and really fulfilling. So I don't know if anybody really has a traditional path, but mine was definitely non-traditional, I would say, out after I graduated and after once I was starting to pursue a career.
Thank you, Tracy. A quick follow-up question, and Angela and Tracy, you can both tackle this if you like. We've talked a lot about the Master of Social Work as a path forward for people who are interested in this field, but I know, as you said, Angela, that there are other masters and there are certainly people who only have a bachelor's degree and they do great work and they've been doing it for a long time. So about about what percentage of your colleagues would you say have a Master of Social Work, and what are some of the other academic backgrounds that you encounter in your work?
So at the residential facility called Horizon, there was a lot of, it was mainly either LMSWs or LMHCs, so licensed mental health counselors. Now that I'm working in more of the community nonprofit, I mean, it's a broad spectrum, everything from public health to business to marketing. It's really across the board. And then also in terms of, I would say there even just levels of degrees. So PhDs, PsyDs, masters, bachelors, KSACs. It's a real mixed bag.
Yeah, at my agency right now, on my team, like working with moms and babies, like about half of us are social workers and half are nurses. And it's really cool. I really like that aspect of this job because there's so much about pregnancy and birth and parenting, like little kids that I don't know. Like for example, one of my moms, she was prenatal at the time. Now she's parenting a little baby. She was having some like high blood pressure, and I can't, that's not within my scope, but I just want to be informed about that and be able to encourage very basic things that I wouldn't know. So I consulted with my nurse colleagues and they sent me all kinds of stuff. They're like, drink water, have her lay on her left side, make sure she's counting her kicks. I didn't know about the importance of kick counting. And then on the other side, like there's a lot of things that I think my nurse colleagues are like domestic violence, like what do I do? Or like this other social situation, homelessness, poverty, what do I do? And the social workers are like, we got you. We got some ideas for you. We also have some other backgrounds like education or public health or all kinds of stuff, but I say mostly it's half nurses, half social workers.
Okay. And that's really good insight. Of course, people are interested in a lot of different paths and somehow they all kind of converge in these spaces, which makes it such a dynamic work environment with all those different perspectives. Excellent. Well, I have a variety of kind of open-ended questions. And so if you feel inclined to respond, please go ahead. If you want to pass, that's okay too. The first one is, what are some of the challenges you have faced as you've pursued this career path?
I can start. So there's a couple that come to mind for me. One I would say is navigating my privilege as a white person in spaces that are predominantly BIPOC, and when it's my turn to step up and when it's my turn to step back, and really ensure that their voices are being amplified and I'm not speaking for them. So that's definitely one thing that I had to learn how to navigate and continue to learn how to navigate, and also how to learn how to actively be an anti-racist, which is an ongoing life process. Another thing that I think has been a challenge for me is, as a queer woman, when it's safe for me to be out in certain spaces, like when I was working in the Dominican Republic, there's a lot of homophobia in the community I was working in. So there was very few people that knew that I identify as queer, just because I didn't want to damage my relationships with the community. So it's definitely a hard balance to find of like, yes, I want to be out so that I can encourage others to be proud of their identity and feel confident in their identity, but also I don't want to, damage the relationships I work so hard to build in the community. So that's another challenge. And the third challenge I would share, I make it sound like it's a horrible profession. It's not. I love it.
Great.
I made a list beforehand of all your questions, so I have a lot of answers. The third challenge is coming up with a work-life balance. And really navigating and finding time for self-care, but also like giving yourself time to process the things you're experiencing at work, because when you're working with people living in poverty that are experiencing trauma, it really can weigh on your mental health. So really finding that time to process and to self-care and to figure out how to, keep your cup at least half full, if not totally full.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing and for being so transparent with us, Amy. Those are all wonderful and very real considerations that I'm sure Angela and Tracy probably have lots to say about that. So I'll just let them chime in.
I'll start with some of the challenges. I think one of the biggest challenges, especially, and I think working with people with substance use disorders, is by the best way that we can honor someone's dignity is allow them to make really harmful choices and allow them to make that choice for themselves. So, I've worked with people who have passed away from overdose, and watching them leave treatment and wishing I could just make them decide to stay. But if I truly honor the dignity of the person, then I have to honor their choice, even if it's a choice that I wouldn't make. And that is really difficult, but it's also allowed me to have a healthier boundary and not take on so much responsibility for those that I work with. The second thing, which I have to recall, I think in social, I loved working at Horizon because I learned so much right away. And they just called the taboo things out right away, which is you're going to be attracted to some of your clients. People are going to push boundaries, and that's normal. And when we normalize it, it's not so shocking and it's not so shameful when it happens, because then we can say, oh, this happened, you can process it in supervision without that taboo factor coming through. Because at the end of the day, everyone's normal. There's people who were very triggering when you do, any kind of work, but especially I worked where people lived. So it was a very intimate work setting. And there was a lot of, I knew people who were very much like my client, and there's the transference and countertransference. But if we can normalize that, and it makes us better clinicians because we're more prepared for when it happens versus, oh, like this is happening, I can't tell anyone, I'm a bad person, I'm a bad clinician, I'm a bad social worker. We can process it and work better with people. And I think that addressing taboo topics head on was something that I was really I was grateful for, but it's really difficult to work through sometimes, and it's going to keep happening, right? But it's nice to have a culture that calls it out right away. So I really am truly lucky and thankful that I started my clinical career at Horizon.
Thank you, Tracy. No, that's so much wisdom there. And are you supervising anyone now that you're at this stage in your career?
Yes, I'm not a clinical supervisor. Now I'm doing community social work rather, but yes, I have a staff of 5 right now.
Mm-hmm. So you get to impart some of those lessons and kind of nuggets to them as they're on their journey too. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
I relate to so much both of you said. It's hard to really elaborate more on anything, I think, except like probably the boundaries, even boundaries around time. Like, I'm not going to be available to clients at certain times. Like, I turn my phone off because I don't want to respond. I turn my work phone off. And if you work with kids, I actually feel really thankful to the kids that I started working with, because they push boundaries and they're going to teach you how to set boundaries. Because at the time I graduated, I was more of a say yes, even if inside I say no, sure, but out inside I'm screaming no. So I've definitely become a lot more aligned in that way. And I feel like a challenge in a good way that of being a social worker and working with families on things that you can even relate to is that they push you to grow as well. I know for me, I have a mental health disorder and it affects my everyday life. And so doing counseling with kids, it helped me at the same time. I'm saying hey, when you're worried, take deep breaths. Let's practice it together. Mm-hmm. And or when you're angry, don't scream at people. I don't scream at people normally, but you know what I mean? Then when I would go, so I would be working all day on these coping skills with kids. Then I get home, something makes me angry, something makes me worried, something makes me sad. I feel like it would be weird to not work on it yourself for your own life and then go tell someone else, let's work on this. Mm-hmm. So it definitely pushes you to grow, but in a really good way, I think.
Yeah, I really like that you said that. I was a resident advisor, RA, in college, and I would always tell my residents, like, it's okay to go to therapy. It's great to go to therapy and like encourage it. But then I was like, but I'm not in therapy. So I was like, I should probably do what I'm encouraging them to do and actually go to therapy because I think everyone should go to therapy. So everyone that has access, I know it's not entirely accessible. It should be. But I realized that there was kind of that disconnect, and I tried my best to get rid of that disconnect.
I'd like to touch on Angela's first point too. In my career, I was also, I would drop everything to help a client when they were in need. But then I realized I wasn't allowing, it was actually to my client's detriment, because instead of them being able to practice the self-soothing skills or the mindfulness skills, right? I was becoming a barrier to that. And I wasn't always going to be there, right? When they went to a different level of care, they left treatment. If they were just using me to cope all the time, I was actually doing them a disservice by always attempting to rescue in that moment. So by putting up boundaries, I realized that I was actually helping my clients in that way by having some distance, because part of this profession kills me. And this was part of the SHEP internship. I really struggled with just being another revolving door in our clients' lives. And because of the very strict boundaries that we have to have, we cannot accept client if, depending on the nature of your job, but you can't accept Facebook requests from your clients. And I have a Facebook request from a former client telling me that his friend passed away, and I'm really worried about him relapsing, but I cannot message him. I cannot call that person on my personal phone number to reach out. And that's really, really difficult. So by allowing people to build their organic support systems and organic coping skills, it helps them in the long run, when at the end of the day, I likely won't be in their life forever in this capacity. And it's for my client's benefit, even though to be honest, it hurts. It hurts a lot for me personally, but it's better for the client.
Oh, I so relate to that. Oh my gosh, because at my last job, so when I left to go to this job, I had to say bye to like 30 or 35 kids and all their families. And I had like had some kids like need to leave, go to a high level of care, or get discharged, all that kind of stuff, and say goodbye, but it was never like this amount. And it really felt like a loss for me personally too, because like this work is so relational. Like you care about your clients a lot, and honestly like have love for them. Like you really care a lot, especially when you get to know them for a long time, like especially like the precious little kids, like my first graders, like, oh, I like really like, I think of them like almost every day still. Like I miss them. And so many parents were like, hey, like my last counselor like gave me their phone number. Can you give me yours? Like, can't you stay in contact with me? And I was like, no, like I'm so sorry. Like I really wish I could, but I would explain it like my one past supervisor told me to explain it like this, especially to kids, that like, have you ever seen a driver's license? Well, there's certain rules you have to follow or else you don't get to keep your driver's license. So it's the same with the social work license. There's certain rules we have to follow or they might take it away. And one of the rules is after, we're not working together, we can't still meet up or anything. So that's kind of how I explain it to kids, but it broke their hearts, and I could tell it broke their hearts. But I always hope that I see them somewhere, because I still live in the same town, and that they'll just yell, Miss Angela, or whatever. I explain to them, I cannot say hello to you first. Not even quiz them. Can I say hello to you first? No. If they weren't sure, we would practice again. But like, I just so hope that I see them someday and they're like, Miss Angela, I'm gonna be this, or I'm going to college, or guess this awesome thing I did. Like, I always hope that, but honestly, like my faith in spirituality helps me a lot, because I told my own counselor about it. I think a lot of social workers go to counseling, and I think that's good because we see a lot of stuff. I told my counselor about it, and she was like, just like give it to God, like give that to God whenever you're feeling that. So when I'm like, oh, I'm worried about this client, like, are they okay? Like this past client, and then be like, hey God, please go hang out with that client because I'm like not able to right now. So that helps me kind of release it and like kind of be more okay. But Tracy, I so relate to that. Not being able to talk to clients after is so hard.
I want to jump in here. One of my questions is about self-care, and it's also about like any other community-oriented work that you may do as a volunteer. So those may be two totally separate things. They may be intertwined for you, but I'm curious, Angela talked about her spirituality, and we talked a little bit before we got started about exercise. What do you do to fill up your cup, like Amy was telling us, and to keep those boundaries intact so that you can be the best provider possible for your clients?
I can take the lead. I feel like I've been monopolizing, but it really helps to good supervision, I think is really great, but not using supervision for as a therapist, as a therapy session. It's a hard line to walk, right? Because I want to be honest, I was really struggling last year with a client who was super triggering for me. And my mental health stuff started coming up. And I wanted to be honest with my boss, but I wasn't sure how much was appropriate to disclose and all those things. And luckily I had a good rapport with my boss, so he helped me through it. Definitely having my own therapist, and having friends in the field, I think is really good, because you can talk about things offline that you're struggling with, or just validation. Because here's the thing, right? We learn how to actively listen and validate in reflective statements. And then a lot of the times, I'll speak for myself, I go to my family who don't really know those skills and don't really understand. And like, sometimes I have to just be like, I just need some validation in this moment. I'm not looking for advice. And my other social work friends, or marriage family therapist friends, or mental health counselor friends, they're just so easy to talk to about either common struggles or just simple validation, which is really great. So I think surrounding yourself with people who get it is really, really critical, because this work is we talk about burnout for a reason and self-care for a reason in this field. So I think that's great. And then in terms of self-care, for me personally, I'm an introvert, so I just need like downtime. And I also just, whatever your hobbies are, just continue hobbies. I like, hardcore music. So going to a really like metal show and like being in the pit is very cathartic for me. And that's not a common coping skill, but I miss shows right now. Like I make jokes like I want to get kicked in the head by a crowd surfer so badly, because that's one of my self-care is live music. And I haven't been able to do that lately, but you can still listen to the music. So no matter if it's weird, like that, or it's knitting, it does anything in between, just if you like it, just do it. It doesn't matter what it is. I think as long as you enjoy it, it's self-care.
Yeah, I definitely agree with like finding people that get it. It's been definitely harder being in my master's program in a pandemic to like build that community.
Yeah.
But we've started to do virtual game nights and just like inviting all of our friends and acquaintances in the program and inviting the group me and everything. And games nights have really been a great way just to like de-stress and build community and get to know one another. I also do paint night with some friends where we just sit at home on our Zooms and do some painting. Obviously, it's different right now because we're in a Zoom world. So everything is like, I'm doing Zoom things, and people also have Zoom fatigue. So that's not always the best solution. I also like to go hiking for self-care. I try to get out at least once a week, out in nature, out of my apartment, and away from my computer, because the screen time these days is just all day, every day on Zoom, and that could be a lot. So, yeah.
Something I've really liked doing like, especially, I relate a lot, Tracy, to what you said about like doing your own healing, because I feel like for me, that's something I'm still working on. And I feel like it's kind of a lifelong thing, but like, I think something that personally helps me a lot is moving my body in any way, especially dancing. I actually love dancing, and I just got a certification to be a group fitness instructor. So I'm going to do that. Social worker by day, dance teacher by night is going to be me. And I figure,
like the tagline.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I should get a T-shirt that like one on the back and the front. Because that's just something I love. And I was like, you know what? Why not learn something new? So I did that. And so dance is one of the things that I love doing. I figure why not get paid doing something I love? But trauma like lives in your body. That's like a very real thing. So moving your body and loving your body is like a very healing thing to do. So that's been one of my main self-care things that I've especially been trying to focus on with the pandemic, because we're sitting all day a lot of times. So yeah, I just notice I feel kind of blah, or things just feel stagnant. So like, even if it's just dancing around my house, my poor cat, she'll run away. She'll be like, you crazy, you're too loud, I'm gonna get out of this situation. So that's definitely one of my self-care things. I think also like finding a job that you genuinely enjoy is important to not burn out, that you actually like care about. So I'm really thankful that like both of my jobs have been that way. And like something I care about a lot, like I relate with you, Amy, is like anti-racism. And something that I'd heard about but didn't really know much about was the Black infant mortality rate and the Black maternal mortality rate. So that's something like I can directly make an impact with at this current job. Working with moms and babies, a lot of our moms are Black mamas. And like if they're not getting good care, or the baby's not, or, you know, we can advocate and step in. And I just think that's really cool and really powerful to like be a part of that. So yeah, I get like meaning from my work. Like we did a burnout scale. Like I did it with my supervisor, sent it to our whole team. And like one of the like trends I was noticing on like the burnout assessment thing was like, I get genuine satisfaction from what I'm doing. Like, I feel like I make a difference. Like at the end of the day, I feel good about what I did. Like that stuff is protective against burnout because you feel that purpose. So I think making sure that you're somewhere where you love is important too.
And I think even if you are somewhere that you love, burnout can still happen. So someone said this once, and I loved it. It's like, I'm not burned out, but I'm starting to get a little crispy. I really liked that because I think what we've all talked about is, especially if we're doing something that we really love, we want to give it our 110%. And this social work is it's a very intimate field, and it's just very easy to empty your cup into the people that you work with and the job that you do. So also there's no shame if you're getting crispy. It just means, you know, maybe need a vacation, or maybe self-care needs to take a higher priority in whatever way, because that can happen as well.
Tracy needs a rock concert, maybe. Whenever the crispiness starts to set in. That is so great. I love how these self-care strategies are totally, or, you know, seemingly separate from the work. Just something that kind of like takes you out of your normal routine, takes you out of your job, and is for you. Like it's self-serving in a way that, and soothing in a way that is rejuvenating. So I really appreciate those ideas and love the dance instructor. Maybe you'll do Zoom classes like the instructor I was telling you about, so people can tune in from far away. That's so cool.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Especially, well, hopefully this pandemic won't drag on forever and you'll be able to have students who are regulars. Two more questions before we wrap up. This one is a little bit more existential. You may not have the answer, but I'm curious to know at this point what comes to mind. What do you see yourself doing in 5 years? Where will you be? What will you do? Who will you work with?
I can take the lead again if no one else wants to. I have learned that I don't plan like that, and that may just be me. But so, if you told me in 2008 that in 5 years I would be spending a summer on a Navajo reservation for a poverty-based internship, while I was, like four-wheeling in a cornfield in Wyoming County, I would have said you were insane. Like I would have never guessed that for myself. And if you told me 5 years ago today, when I was not even in the field because I was so just not confident yet, that I would be recruited for a management position at my age, I would have told you were insane. So, but I think if you intentionally do good work, things will come back around. I know that I am very fortunate to hold the position that I have with the age and experience that I have, but it's because I took even just where I work now, I was just a volunteer. I wasn't an intern. I was just a volunteer. And because I took that so seriously, I had fun. I enjoyed it, obviously. Opportunities came back around. So I think I would still like to be in some type of leadership position. And whether that's still at Heart, Love, and Soul or not, the only time will tell. But I have learned that the future is a wild and beautiful place. And I look forward to it, but I'm not an intentional micromanaging architect of it, because you can plan all you want and let's gonna say interesting plans, but this is what's gonna happen. But that's just my personal journey that I found, and that's how I have progressed through my career and through my life, and that's just my personal approach.
I really like that approach. I'm a little more of a planner. I'm very type A, but I don't really have an exact plan. I have like a general idea of what I want to do. So the population I want to work with is LGBTQI immigrants and refugees. And I would love to do either casework or community organizing or a combination of both, and really just be like partnering with the community to make systemic change. So that's kind of where I hope to be in the next couple of years. And after I graduate in December, and then maybe moving up in leadership positions around 5-10 years from now. We'll see what happens wherever life takes me, I guess.
So very type A and then type B.
Social workers have to learn to be flexible. That's something that was hard for me at first, but I'm learning.
Amy, I love that you mentioned too refugees too. I forgot to mention part of my job right now is I get to meet a lot of refugee families, specifically Nepali families. And I also have one Ukrainian family. So that's really cool too, is like getting to learn about other cultures and like getting to learn some words. Like my Nepali babies, I love seeing them. Well, we're socially distanced. I bring them diapers and wipes every other week, and we do telehealth every other week. And we have masks, stay socially distanced and everything. But a lot of the babies speak only Nepali at home, or hear only Nepali. A lot of them are just going blah, blah, blah. They're not speaking anything technically yet. But I'll go namaste, and the moms will put the baby's hands together and say like namaste, namaste, like trying to get the baby to say it. And it's so cute, and I love it. Like, and I love learning words. Like I already knew namaste, but I'm also learning a little more now that we use interpreters too. So it's just kind of cool. But yeah, Tracy, I agree. I have no like official plan. I think I kind of just like go with what my heart or like gut is feeling is right. Like you can usually sense if it's going to be right or not. At least for me, that's how I like decide things in general. I'm an ENFP. I don't know if you guys know your Myers-Briggs, but I kind of decide based on that gut feeling. So yeah, right now I'm feeling really content where I am. So that's cool.
I'm an INFP, so I get it, Angela. Just
Yes, I love some of my
spectrum.
besties are INFPs.
Like a secret society. No, it's great. All right, so I'll pose this last question and run with it. Crosstalk is welcome. So what words of advice would you give to SHEP alumni who are thinking about pursuing a career in social services?
The first thing that comes to mind is if you're going to do your advanced standing master's in 1 year, you get one shot at classes, because a lot of the time a certain class is only offered in the fall or the spring, and it can be a little daunting to specialize that quickly. But I would say take those class selections seriously, because they'll really help inform your career. You'll learn a lot, but also most of the learning happens in your first job. I mean, just like Angela said, she's never had kids, but she's working with babies. My internship was at the VA, and I'm not a vet, and then I continue to work on with vets, right? And learning about mindfulness and honing motivational interviewing skills. If you're interested in learning, there's always going to be opportunities. So, intentionally pick your classes, but that's not the end of learning. You're going to learn so much on the job. And that's okay. Everyone's been there. Everyone's still learning. No one knows about every single culture or every single, sexual orientation experience or age experience, right? We can't know everything, but we can just be a humble ally to those. And I don't know if anybody just saw my cat's paw just popped up and it distracted me.
I saw, so cute.
So it was the end of that rant anyway, so I'm glad he made me wrap up.
Photo bombing you,
Yeah, right. Yeah, paw bombing.
Yeah.
Me and my what were you gonna say?
No, go ahead, Angela.
Oh, just really quick. Me and my supervisor's cats during telehealth supervision or online have met each other virtually because they both come in the background.
Funny.
Amazing. The last thing I was just going to say is imposter syndrome. I actually just saw this lately. Almost everyone, I would say virtually everyone, experiences imposter syndrome. So if I think it was a meme. If everybody else is into the scam, you might as well get a slice of the scam. So just keep doing what you're doing. Imposter syndrome is universal. It doesn't make you any less worthy to be where you are.
That is such good advice. I guess I would add to that, advocate for yourself, especially in your MSW programs, if that's the route you decide to go in. Make sure you get the internship you want, make sure you're advocating for your needs throughout your program, and reach out to professors and your supervisors. They're there to help you and to support you, so don't be afraid to ask for help. I know asking for help can be really hard, but it really, it's so important, and it's so okay to ask for help. Another thing I would say is, I'm blanking, really to engage in your community and start to build networks now, whether that's be involved politically or be involved in whatever manner, volunteering, however you want to be involved in the future. It's never too early to start getting involved in whatever causes you're passionate about. And I am blanking on the last thing, so I'll come back in a minute.
I have a question because I haven't done my master's yet. So I was wondering, how did you balance things in your master's program? Having the master's to do, and then if you worked on the side or family or other engagements, what did you do to balance that?
So I'm still currently in it, so I can say what I've done so far, but I haven't started my internship yet. I'll be starting that next week, actually. So that may change things a bit. But I guess I've really tried to set aside time that's this is my class and homework time, and then time this is work time. I was working at a restaurant, which was not very COVID safe, so I didn't last very long there because it was bad. But just making sure I also set aside self-care time and just finding that balance and not putting too much on my plate. And also, one thing one of my professors said was basically just do the best you can do. We're living through a pandemic, we're living through, so much racism, political disarray. I mean, we're living through so many things right now. And And one article he sent us that I really like goes over some tenets of like white privilege and white supremacy. And it says that like perfectionism is a tenet of white supremacy. So I think we need to kind of unlearn that perfectionism that society kind of instills on us. And like, yes, you want to try your best and like try to make an impact and do the best you can, but it's okay to make mistakes and it's okay to learn from those mistakes. It's good to learn from those mistakes. I don't know if I really just answered your question, but really just like I'm a Google Calendar girl. So I put everything in my Google Calendar and that helps me keep my life organized and balanced. And that's another way I keep my life together.
Yeah, that helps. I love that.
Yeah, I live by my calendar too. I just did my master's at such a different time. I was right out of college, so I was already used to being in school full time. I had a part-time restaurant job at Olive Garden, right? So doing my internship. So I just had less responsibility, and there was so much less going on in the world at that time that that I just right now you're just in such a both of you are in such a unique position that I can't completely relate to, but definitely I think what Amy said about scheduling your time, being intentional with your time, and just self-care 101, keep meeting with your therapist, and also just giving yourself grace and saying like the days that you're struggling and just saying I'm struggling today and today's a self-care day, and if I have to drop everything, you know what, then I have to drop everything. If I have to call in sick from work today because I can't get out of bed, that's okay. Everyone is a human being, and we are, you know, like we are going through, how many historical events have we lived through in the past year alone, right? So just give yourself the grace you would give your clients or your friends or your family. Self-talk is huge, and just pay attention to that. Thanks, Amy.
I'll just jump in here for a second if you'll oblige me. So I went a different route to the Master of Social Work program and started when I was in my late 20s. My undergrad was not in social work. It was in sociology and anthropology because Washington and Lee is not a social work offering bachelor's school. So it was a non-traditional path, but it provided a very eclectic foundation, I'd say. And as all of you have mentioned, there are so many different ways to get there. And I think one of the kind of core themes is like finding out what population you're the most passionate about, or what region, or what topic, and then letting that be your guide and not getting as concerned or bogged down in the, well, is it a Master of Social Work, or is it a school psychology degree, or is it a Master of Public Health, or what is it? Like, just follow whatever drives you, and the opportunities will be there in one form or another. But most likely a career in social services will interact with social workers. It's just sort of part of the salad, and it is a very diverse collection of individuals. So there's something out there for everybody, and even for people who decide they get their bachelor's and that's enough. I've interacted and worked with so many of those folks too. So it's not an exclusively graduate level field at all. Jim, is there anything you want to add from your experiences as a career changer who's in this field?
Well, gee, I've done so many weird things. And there was a younger guy that I've gotten to be friends with lately. And so he was asking me some things because he just sold a company. He's young, he's 30 years old. And so he was trying to figure this out. And I said, well, listen, I remember when I used to think in 2-year increments, you know, boy, I can do this for 2 years and then I'm going to do that for 2. Or I would look back and say, boy, I did that for 2 years and I did that for 2 years. And that was great because I got all these different experiences in kind of 2-year increments. And I told him, but now I look back in 10-year increments, you know, decades of things, but that's okay. I mean, the point is your life is a book and it's got all these little chapters in it. And some of them are little short stories and some of them are bigger chapters. But that's just part of it. And so, and you don't look upon any one of them as a throwaway, you know, or a negative, or a gosh, that was a terrible chapter. You know, you don't look at it that way at all. You just look at the whole thing. And I always used to really enjoy kind of, you know, moving on from one to the other, from one chapter to the other. And that may be harder for introverts. I don't know. I forgot what my Myers-Briggs is. I haven't done that in so long. I can't remember but it wasn't introvert. It was something else, something more extrovert. But I just, I just enjoyed that moment when I knew, okay, I'm moving away from that and I'm going to open up this new chapter. And that was just such a wonderful feeling, that, wow, I just have all this stuff in front of me that I can do. I have all these choices in front of me, in this new chapter. So I would say embrace that. I mean, that's part of the school thing too. I didn't go back to graduate school until I was 29, which was, I was one of the older people in my class, in a business school class. And, but I just embraced it, and I loved it. I loved having that new doorway to new things. So look upon it that way, just enjoy. And there are many times when I talk to younger people like you all, and I say, wow, I wish I was you. I wish I could go and be in that moment again, because I'm running out of that. I'm running out of those periods, in my life to do those things. That's just part of it. But you enjoy. At some point, you'll become. You probably are already doing this. Doing your own kind of mentoring to some younger people. You're running into 18, 19, 20-year-olds now, and or 23 or 4-year-olds. They're looking up to you. They're looking up to you, and you always remember there's always somebody looking up to you, and they will remember what you say, even though you may not think it's that important what you had to say, but they may come back to you years later and say, I really remember that one thing you told me. So,
Jim, just a point on that. It's really scary when clients remember things that you say and you're, oh my gosh, you remembered. I said that. What else have you remembered? That was one of the moments in my career. It's like, oh gosh, maybe I gotta.
What did I say about that?
My words really have weight with people.
Yeah.
That's a big realization.
That's a funny one too. I went back to one of my business school classrooms. I can't believe it was 35 years ago. And I hadn't seen the guy in a long time. I had not seen him in 30 years. And I sat down with him at lunch and I said, Tom, I just got to tell you this. I've been quoting you for the past 35 years on something. And the guy was just kind of shocked. And he said, really? I said, what was it? He said, and I'll share this with you because I think it's an important kind of thing to remember. There was a moment when I was really upset. I was in this new company and I thought I got kind of screwed over, on some stocks, some shares and some other things. And I was 32 or 3 or 4. And I was really upset, and I was working 18-hour days. And he said, don't worry about it. He said, look, just keep adding value. Just keep adding value. Well, he meant it in his financial way, keep adding value to the company and it'll come back to you. Well, I took it way beyond that, to mean keep adding value to everything that you do, in every part of your life. And even when things are tough, just dig into that one thing or one place where you think you can add value to somebody else's life, to something else you're working on, to the organization you're working on. If you focus on that, everything will be fine. It all kind of works out. Just keep adding value. And you're already off on you're doing that now, and you're just keep it up. Just keep going. It's all the only advice I can give you. But it's great. And don't be afraid to have parallel careers. I'd say certainly parallel interests, because that feeds your downtime. It feeds your other part of your brain, right? When you have a healthy brain, you got to make different parts of it work. But I've had multiple parallel careers for several years in nonprofit life, for-profit life, archaeology of all things, poetry or writing, or and that's just a healthy thing for your brain to be able to. And there are things you will bring in from one part of your brain and one part of that other life that you won't even know that you've done that. But it will enhance some other part of your career and your life. So that's my old man stuff, to tell you. So.
Well, thank you for adding value to our conversation.
I love it.
Jim.
And
thank you.
I was so worried about getting here late. I love sitting in on these sessions. So thank you for letting me do that.
Oh, no problem. We were glad you were here. And thanks everybody who's tuning in and watching this conversation about careers in social services. Of course, you can connect with SHEP on social media. We have a private alumni LinkedIn group, and of course, Facebook, Twitter, and this YouTube channel. So see you around hopefully soon, and take
Good
care.
luck. Good luck. Hope to see you again.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.